Alex. Good afternoon, everybody. Now, I'd like to share my PowerPoint presentation slide. So please let me know if you can see my screen, and then we can start.
We do see it.
Great. So good afternoon, everyone. So I've been working for the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, for the past 13 years. And during this tenure, I actually spent 2 years in Thailand working for the Asia Pacific Regional Center of UNDP. So I'm absolutely delighted today to speak for the Thai audience, sharing some examples from Korea, where I'm based in. Now, all over the world, the use of ICT is really changing our governance systems, and COVID-19 pandemic has truly accelerated the speed of digital transformation in our public services around the world. In driving public service innovations, however, I think what kind of perspective and end objectives we take does truly matter in terms of what kind of digital transformation that we bring about. Without a deliberate attempt to design policies that leave no one behind, the digital transformation can actually generate greater exclusion and inequalities while only benefiting the already fortunate. In my short talk today, I would therefore highlight few examples from Korea to show how we can make deliberate attempts to use digital technologies to target the poor and marginalized within our societies, and how can we use digital technologies to solve such difficult challenges like corruption, transparency, and safety, even in such difficult sector as the public construction sector. Now, how many of you been to Korea? I'm sure many of you been to Korea and know of Korea. But you may not know this, but back in the 1950s, Korea was one of the poorest countries, absolutely devastated by the Korean War, as shown on this picture. This picture that you see on the screen is Seoul in the 1950s. And now this picture is more familiar to you probably, because for the past few decades, Korea has made remarkable achievements in socioeconomic development and political democracy, now to become the 10th largest economy in the world in terms of GDP, and to a powerhouse of vibrant culture, including, of course, the home of BTS that Thai people love, like us Koreans here. An important aspect of Korea's socioeconomic development in recent years has been really the explosive growth of information and communications technology, both in the public and private sphere. Now, let me just highlight some statistics and indicators showing Korea's digital transformation successes. According to the International Telecommunications Union, 92.7% of individuals in Korea use the internet, where the world average is only about 45%, and 111.5% per 100 people enjoy active mobile broadband subscription, against the world average of 52.2%. This is quite remarkable. And as the country rolled out the world's first 5G services, Koreans are now enjoying the fastest download experience in the world. And in the area of public service, Korea has also become a leader of digital governance. For instance, Korea ranked #1 on the Digital Government Index in 2019 by OECD. And Korea also ranked first in UN DESA's e-government index, as well as e-participation index for some years between 2010 and 2014, and has consistently remained high on ICT-related indexes. So in 2020, some of you may have seen this story of CNN featuring how Korea has developed in terms of the ICT. And the story, for instance, highlighted how Korea embraced technologies from infrastructure to culture like nowhere else in the world. But as I said, what kind of digital innovations do we really want to make in public services? And this really depends on the perspective that we take And I believe that Korea and the city of Seoul that I'm going to also cite in particular today demonstrates that transparency, empowerment, and the whole principle of leaving no one behind can actually be the driving force of our public policy innovations in terms of digital transformation. And this is what I want to emphasize using the example from the Republic of Korea. So the first example, free public Wi-Fi coverage throughout the Seoul city. Seoul City has made concerted efforts in the past few years to provide public Wi-Fi throughout the Seoul City, which is the capital city of Korea, free of charge, so that people can enjoy the internet service without economic burdens. So it has made a lot of investment for providing public access points since 2011 in particular. Now, as you can see, this shows, for instance, a business district of Seoul that has all these public Wi-Fi access points. Now, compared to only about 300 APs in 2011, over 21,000 access points were built by 2019, and Seoul expects to have almost 24,000 access points by the end of this year, 2022. And Seoul is also actively managing its public Wi-Fi access in terms of quality. And this dashboard actually shows the actual online management system that Seoul government does for continuous improvement of its public Wi-Fi system. Second example I want to highlight is this. In order to close the digital gap by age, which is a great challenge faced by many countries around the world, the Korean government has implemented various policies and efforts in the past decades to increase the internet usage rate among the senior citizens. This data from the Ministry of Science and ICT shows that the internet usage rate, for instance, increased from only 19% in 2008 to 89% by 2018, just within 10 years for those citizens who are in their 60s. This is actually quite impressive. And behind this impressive figure has been the Korean government's policies and targeted efforts to actively provide computer as well as IT-related education and training for its senior citizens, as well as the government's efforts together with the private telecommunications companies to lower the cost of the mobile subscription fees of the senior citizens. So this internet usage rate increases did not come automatically, but came about out of a conscious policy and endeavors. Now, the third example that I want to show you also relates to the senior citizens. Now, under the Emergency Safety Response Service Program since 2020, the Ministry of Health and Welfare is providing some 300,000 ICT equipment with AI technologies shown on this picture in partnership with a Korean company, SKT, to living alone senior citizens and severely handicapped people. This equipment detects various types of at-home emergencies that seniors can face, such as fire, fall, heart attack, or respiratory issues, and then automatically reports such accidents to the public emergency call center. This equipment also assists social welfare workers and family members to remotely monitor and care for their elderly and the disabled. As of 2020, there are approximately 99,000 people being supported by this scheme. This service using the AI technology is also helping to provide information and to reduce loneliness for these senior citizens and handicapped people, which is really a serious issue. And I recall a few minutes earlier that the audience has identified mental health being one of the greatest challenges in Thailand, and this is certainly also the issue in Korea. And this technology is also helping to address that, particularly for the most vulnerable among the senior citizens. Now, the fourth example I want to highlight is how the Seoul government used the big data to install its nighttime public bus system. With the Seoul's metro system closed between midnight and 5 a.m., the launching of all-night bus services across Seoul was very much welcomed by many of citizens who have to return home late at night. I mean, taking expensive taxi rides, for instance, really imposed a disproportionate burden on the economically disadvantaged people in particular. But to design the system was not easy. So in order to accurately identify the movement pattern of citizens during the nighttime, the Seoul Metropolitan Government collaborated with a telecommunications company called KT in Korea to gain access to a huge set of anonymized mobile communication data. So it used over 3 billion mobile call logs and journey data from over 5 million taxi rides. And then they used this data that they gathered over a month to map out the distribution of late night travelers. And then the city determined the night bus service routes as well as the time intervals. And the impact of this kind of policymaking was revolutionary. After 3 months of initiation of this big data-driven public bus service overnight, Seoul's public night bus system received a service satisfaction score of 82 points out of 100, and every passenger is estimated to have saved approximately $5.5 for each journey, which is not a small sum of money. Now, last but not least, I want to really highlight Seoul's clean construction system for transparency, efficiency, and safety in public construction project management. And this really shows to me the power of digital governance innovations that is designed to address the most difficult challenges that we face. Now, Korea's rapid economic and social development was not without problems. The country long struggled with problems of corruption and shoddy construction practices in particular, and as well as inefficiency in the public construction management. The collapse of Seongsu Bridge in 1994 that you see, and the collapse of the Sampung department store in the heart of Gangnam, in city of Seoul, was really shocking. I mean, especially this collapse of the Sampung department store in the heart of Gangnam district that you probably heard about, had over 500 people dead. And I remember very well personally of these disasters. And these kind of construction disasters were because of the shoddy construction practices and the corruption that was during the business processes of construction. So in order to address this kind of serious problem in the public construction sector, the Seoul government really put their heads together with the civil society and many technical experts to develop what they call the clean construction system, which is basically Seoul's digital public construction management system. This improved efficiency of public construction management within the Seoul government, and it provides citizens with real-time information, and it thereby reduces corruption and safety risks. Now, this clean construction system has mainly two components. One is the internal project management system called the 1PMIS, which basically manages digitally all project information from the beginning to the end, and then discloses in real time all the data from the internal project management system to the citizens through a public information disclosure system called ALIMI, which means to inform in Korean language. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of all the types of information that is being managed by Seoul's internal project management system, one PIMIS, or the ALIMI, the public disclosure system. But I just want to highlight that it's really about everything involved in the public construction management process that is really being integrated into this digital system. And the citizens can also enjoy accessing all this information concerning Seoul's public construction projects at the convenience of their fingertips through the mobile version of ALIMI. Now, what you see here on this screen is what I extracted a few hours ago. I extracted this actually about 5 hours ago today, so this is very, very live. So what you basically do is that when you go to the ALIMI site, either on your computer or on your mobile phone, you can either click on the map of Seoul and then get a whole list of various public construction projects, or you can type in the name of particular public construction project that you really want to look up. And on the overall project overview page that you see here, it provides the exact location as per the GPS map, the project period, the progress rate, basically what they are supposed to be doing by now and how things are right now, names and telephone numbers of the responsible project managers, both within the Seoul government and the construction company that has this contract, and the total contract value. So you already have this information in your project overview page that you see here on the right. And then you also see all these different photos that really demonstrate how the buildings are being developed. And the citizens thereby can monitor the progress of the projects with supporting photos. And therefore, citizens can check, for instance, whether payments have been made in line with the actual progress in the construction. Now, this ALIMI site also features information regarding the contract details. Really, they go down to the detail. Not only about the big prime contractors, but also of the subcontractors. And then it also shows the contract payment status and disbursement details. So citizens can basically access the information on the Seoul government's payments to all these contractors for each project, including the exact amount, date, and the receiving entities of these payments. And this ALIMI site also shows some safety records, in terms of the naming departments of the construction companies, as well as the Seoul government, and the types and the dates of key safety checks that were performed, as well as the photos of safety measures undertaken. And it also contains information on the construction companies in terms of their penalty received for negligence in safety or quality management. And for instance, the name of the company, the merit number, the demerit points, as well as demerit, a date of the demerit and positions, and so on. Now, in terms of the status of utilization of this system, as of March 2022, one PMIS system of Seoul managed over 46,000 public construction projects. And then over 90,000 people used this public disclosure system. So just to wrap up, what can be some of the policy lessons from Seoul, particularly pertaining this public construction management system that I just shared with you more in detail today? First, there is no magic bullet for such entrenched problems like corruption and lack of transparency in the public construction sector. But standardization and digitalization of business and reporting processes by the government can indeed help reduce corruption risks and really solve the challenge. And the second policy lesson from Seoul is that providing the real-time data, in other words, the live source of information, is really key. The old way of just uploading the already old or dead information exposed is not the right approach. And creating one-time information just for the sake of disclosing some information does not last long. And third, strong political will for transparency and information disclosure is absolutely critical in this kind of policy innovations, because resistance is inevitable when we are addressing power-related challenges such as corruption and lack of transparency. Lastly, the policy lessons from Seoul really demonstrate that information disclosure can empower citizens and help build trust and reduce social conflict. Why would that be? Because systems like the Seoul's clean construction system actually affect real people and their everyday business practices. And once we create the underlying culture of accountability and transparency, this really contributes to building the social trust. And social trust is absolutely key to reducing social conflicts surrounding big interests like public construction projects. So digital transformation and public policy innovations, such as what I demonstrated to you today in this presentation, really show that it is possible for us to really make conscious efforts and conscious policy decisions to arrive at policy innovations that really help to improve transparency, that help to empower the poor and the marginalized, like the elderly, and that really leave no one behind. And I think this is really the final point that I want to make today. That the policy choices that we have to make really depend on what kind of priorities that we make. And I think that the digital transformation really has the potential either to empower the citizens, particularly the marginalized and the poor, or to further drive inequalities and grievances within our societies. And the lessons from Korea demonstrate that it is absolutely critical and also possible to make conscious policy choices and policy innovations in ways that are reducing the social inequalities and addressing the serious challenges within our society, such as corruption and lack of transparency. So I will close with that. And once again, thank you for your attention.